State terrorism refers to acts of terrorism conducted by governments. The definition of terrorism remains without international consensus. Terrorism has been described variously as both a tactic and a strategy, a crime and a holiday, a justified reaction to oppression, and an inexcusable abomination. Obviously, a lot of depends on whose points of view is being represented. Terrorism has been often an effective tactic for the weaker side in a conflict.
Some countries or nations, such as Iran and Pakistan, have been routinely seen out as terrorist states, but the label has been applied to a wide variety of other governments, including nations like the United States and Great Britain. One of the most famous insights of state terrorism, the regime of terror in 18th century France, involved the use of terrorist tactics by a nation on its own citizens. The French government, struggling for legitimacy in a chaotic nation, attempt to keep the populace soothed with draconian and violent policies. Many dictators use similar tactics to keep their citizens in check and to prevent protesting, although these activities may not always be viewed as terrorism. Terrorism involves the use of violence, coercion, and threats to create instability. The instability in turn can lead to social chaos, a decline in morale, and the collapse of a government or social group. When it is committed by individual actors, terrorism is usually easy to define. A suicide bomber who destroys a school to make a political statement. If, for example, country A sends covert troops into country B to destabilize its government, this could be considered state terrorism and distinct from a legitimate act of war.
The news that occurs by terrorist acts organized by governments are very common. The most recent and dramatic is the decapitation of an American journalist by jihadist terrorists that govern the so-called Islamic State in Pakistan. Terrorists propitiated and allowed by Iraqi authorities intend to instill fear and destabilize the American government. As in any terrorist act, die innocent people and families suffer the painful consequence of terrorism.